Okay. We are back in the building. As you know, for some reason I've been coughing, so that's why I'm drinking. Not alcohol. I'm actually drinking some juice. I don't drink alcohol. Right? Um, Hold on 1 minute. Let me grab something real quick. Okay. Now, in this, as you can see, the question is, are the Jews the most successful culture of all times? And why? Now, this is coming from a group that I'm in. Right? Hold on. Let me. Uh oh. Uh oh. Uh oh. Uh oh. Uh oh. Uh oh. Right? Hold on a minute. Oh, forgive me there. Had my camera all messed up. Okay. So let me go over to the white. I'm gonna take myself away, right? And so in this, right, we could see the post by Danny Vassinia. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Anyway, Jews, and this is from a group called Jews and Hebrew Israelites. Let's debate. Now, as anybody knows, I'm not a Hebrew Israelite. I do not identify as a Jew or a Hebrew Israelite, and I don't know why any black person would want to do so. Right? Now, I'm also not an atheist. I'm not in the woke community. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Muslim. I'm a maroon, right? I am against the empire. As anybody knows, as far as my understanding and everything that I have gathered, gods are emperors, rulers of empires. And also, gods are those who set foundations and things. And I've got into it, and I have no problem getting into it again. But for the sake of this right here, we'll just stick to what it's saying. All right. Jews are unquestionably the most successful culture of all times. I'm asking, is this the case? Right? And goes, and some people hate to hear it. This is by Edward Mercado. What is a Jew? It's not a race, so it must be a club you join. Well, for me, I say that Jews are a race. You know, originally. Now that have been tainted, but the Jew is the Middle Easterner. So the Arab, as some would say, right? And well, we can't call them Arabs only due to the fact that that's an empire. So these people would not be under that empire. They would be in between the Babylonian and the Akkadian Empire. So just for the sake of argument, but as far as identifiers, yes, they're Middle Easterners. And me, I said, yeah, successfully robbing the people, right? Robbing. I'm pretty sure that's your people, racist son of a bitch. But my people robbed you. So, hey, what can I say? But, let's get down to business. Jews are the most highly educated people in the world. We don't need to rob anybody. We're able to build businesses and find gainful employment. The system, if anybody has, hold on, let me bring myself back here real quick, right? As anybody has studied any system, let's take America, right? And let's take first coming into America with the Native Americans, right? I don't even like calling them Indians because that's a false classification of the people. But the native people to this land, right? Pardon me here. The native people to this land, right? So we call them Native Americans, right? These people were invaded by a group of people coming in, right, with books and, Humble's identifications, right? We're innocent people, we're here just bringing the words of the Lord, right? The scouts. We see it today. There's a book called pardon me, the economic hitman, right? Go read it if you get a chance. Now it's about how these people would go into these lands and invade them by getting close to them and using technology, just information and whatnot to get them under their control. Now, we could say that's the foundation of America, fine. But that tradition of gobbling up even those who came in, we can look at this from how the West was won. The West was won by the government sending in these people, whether it be not just military, it could be, regular citizens, with the incentives of going inside there and settling the land, and that'll be their property, right? 40 acres and a mule, should we say. Now, the government, after it has won the West, right, by sending in these outlaws, they send in the government to control the outlaws. And so through time, we see the gobbling up. And now we can see people, we can look at California and overpricing of land and rent and stuff like that. We could see how this is forcing people who once lived in that area to become outsourced, should we say, through finances, pushing them out. Right? So I'm using that as an example for as we get into back into my conversation with Danny here. Right? So let's go back over to Danny here. Right? So in this, it says, I go, have you heard of the land of Nod? And why is it important in this conversation? Yes, I have in Parshia 2 weeks ago. Relevance. So my thing is, to say you heard of something but you can't expound on it means you do not know it. That's the reason why I make it my business to ask people questions as we go into the conversation, because it is show you have no authority in this conversation. You're making a post and you have no idea about what you're walking into or about who might know about your people, if these are actually your people to begin with. Right? It goes, well, if you know about the land of Nod, you would be telling me why this is important. Right? So he laughs it off. You just going in circles, just make your point already. My point was already made. Y'all robbers, they're robbers. So it was no point to be made. What are you talking about? Right? I made my point. Now, if you wanted me to expound on it, I gotta make sure you were even able to even deal with the conversation to begin with. You might not be on the level to hold the conversation with me because you lack the knowledge and because you are going at something with such authority. That's the reason why we are not even gonna go back and forth, because you're speaking with authority about a subject you know nothing about, right? So let me show you what I was showing him. Josephus wrote in Antiquity of the Jews, AD 93, that Cain continued his wickedness and Nod, resorting to violence and robbery. My statement was robbing, right? But how? Establishing weights and measures, transforming cultures from innocent to craftiness and deceit, establishing what? Property lines and building fortified cities. This is what we get when we look at their culture, right? We look at this and we get to understand what is going on. Your culture was based on robbery and murder. Just because you have set up a situation to where you can paint the narrative does not change the fact when we look around and we can see what's taking place. We can see the lines, we can see the properties and all of this stuff being taken. We can hear about weights and measures and how robbing the scales, tipping the scales to one favor. We can see this. We can see this in today's time. We know who's owning the properties. We know. So when we talk about the Jews in this sense, it's written, it's put out there, and all I'm doing is showing the actual facts of the situation. This is what's going on. This is what the truth is. Right? So when you let these people tell you something, from the time that you was banished out of the Garden of Eden, from that time, this is what you have established in yourself. This is what you have made for yourself. You have put yourself in a position to tell the story. More power to you. So your narrative is painted, but anybody who step backs and looks at what they say, those who observed you like myself, they can see and say the same thing. Right? I didn't make up the land of Nod. This is in the beginning of the Bible. This is where Cain was sent after killing Abel, in the land of Nod. So then when you do your research into the land of Nod and why was this the place, and then we say sleep, because Nod is to sleep. right? So when we look at the land Nod, right? Hold on a minute here, right? Let's go back up here, right? Right, because the land of Nod is a place mentioned in the book of Genesis of the Hebrew Bible, located on the east of Eden, where Cain was exiled by God after Cain murdered his brother Abel, according to Genesis 4:16. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelled in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. Genesis 4:17 relates that after arriving in the land of Nod, Cain's wife had a son with him, Enoch, whose name is he built the first city, right? Nod. It goes is the root word to wander. Therefore, to dwell in the land of Nod can mean to live a wandering life. And as we know, we can see with, Islam and how they're mad that, the Jews got Jerusalem, because this was against what God had deemed for them, according to their story, their system, right? Also follows to be moved, to be agitated, right? Used to read shaken by the wind, hence to wander, to be a fugitive, right? Fugitively. To harvest has fled. The harvest has fled. But see which some take in the place as the substitute. Right? So let me show this to you again right here so you can always look this up yourself. Nod, right? As we can see up here, nod, right? Wanda, everything that I said is right there. Much as Cain's name is connected to the verb meaning to get in Genesis 4:1, the name Nod closely resembles the word Nad, usually translated as vagabond. In Genesis 4:12, right, rendering the same verse, God caused Cain trembling, right? So, when we look at this system, right, we cannot deny what was set up about them, right? So I don't know why any black person would want to be associated with this. I really just don't understand that at all. Right? Why would you want to be known as the criminals, right? Because they put us in a criminal state right now, because they put us in a situation of us having to be in a certain light. If we were doing it in a revolutionary way, doing this to advance our people the way they did to advance their people, then fine. But we're not. We're doing it in unbeknownst to us in helping them. Helping them. We are the tools. And now when I say that, I'm not talking about just black people in this sense. The system that is set up to use us, the people, as tools. It's set up to use us against us in many ways, right? That does not give the European a pass. No, it does not. Because in his dealings with this system, he has chosen to be the utmost wicked, right? That's why when we look at the British Israelites, we see the system set up and we see masonry as the cult of Queen Elizabeth I. And this is all dealing with British Israelitism and now making the female god. Right? Pardon me 1 second here as I pour me some more juice. Right? Okay. So when you presenting yourself to these liars and thieves, one, you got to make sure to keep them on the up and up by making sure they can even hold a conversation with you and not be running you in circles and wasting your time. That's key one. Make sure that they're not able to run you in circles. And the best way to do that is to not jump out there and just offer information. Make sure that they are able to even hold a conversation with you. Make sure you do that. And the best way to do that is to have the information, right? And that doesn't mean like I didn't have to store this information in any page or something. No, I already know this information about them. I've done my studies on them. So now all I gotta do is just pull up the information at any given time and bombard them with the truth. And that's what I advise you to do. Gather the information, right? And be careful of the information that you're gathering because I've the early years of my life I studied the Bible. Right, the early years. So now I'm in the later years of my life. This information that I'm able to pull up is from 30 years ago. You see what I'm saying? Holding this information, constantly building and weeding out the truth from the lies, finding out what God really is, understanding that, God is man, but what kind of man? A ruler, an emperor. So when we look at the first emperor in history, we find Sargon, and how Sargon is closely related to Moses in the Bible, who is God, right? Adam is a God, right? Eve is a God in the Bible. They had gained knowledge and they became gods. They became as one of us, as the Bible says. So they became gods. And when we say that, that just means that there was another empire set up somewhere and they broke off from that system and set up their own system. This is all this is meaning. And this is not my interpretation. This is what the Bible says itself. The Bible tells you that. When you read the beginning of Genesis 2, it tells you these are the generations of the heavens and earth. As you know, because they've restarted. Restarted their system. They broke out of a system and they started their system. The only difference is they had the written word. So now they're able to maneuver in a certain way. Because now you're debating the story in its written text and how old it is and the misinterpretations and the interpretations and all of this, that, and the third, while not doing your research into the people of the time to find out what the Bible is really talking about. That was a stage in my life I had to go through. After reading the Bible, I had to study the people of the Bible. That's how I discovered who gods were and what gods were, by studying the people and understanding how they think or thought at that time. What was being promoted to them. And so then when we look at Jesus, Julius Caesar, right, and then we understand the Luciferian system with Queen Elizabeth, we are able to see these things because they reveal themselves. They reveal themselves. If God is emperors, then all we got to start doing is studying from the first emperor on. And then we can see, oh, here we go. And then we find the stories associated with them. We look at how their empires were ruled and the thinking behind those empires. Right? So, my question again is, are the Jews the most successful culture of all times? With robbery and miseducation and misdirection, yes, yes, they are the most successful at this craft. Because if success means to own and hold and have things, yes, they own it. They own the world. Not the whole world, but anything under the system of the Abrahamic system, yes. Yes, they are the most successful out of those people. Yes. Do your research and understand what is being said, and you too will be able to break free from the lies and the chains given to the people. Peace.